My name is Ayo Megbope. I'm the founder and CEO of Noleftovers Nigeria Limited. Noleftovers started 15 years ago with a seed capital of 1,000 Naira. I come from a beautiful family of 7, mom, dad, and 5 children. So I'm the second of 5 children. We are 3 girls and 2 boys. My father was an engineer and my mother was a homemaker. I had struggles with my academics. I had struggles. Number 1, I knew I was playful. Number 2, I was going through abuse that nobody knew about. And so managing all of that as a child was quite distracting. And so that affected my academics a great deal. Finished secondary school. My school certificate result was nothing to write home about. I remember getting home with my results, and my father was very disappointed. Well, he wasn't as disappointed the first time as he was the second time. Because the first time I did my school cert, I actually had 4 credits and 2 passes. My father was surprised because he felt that, as playful as I was, I could still, have that result. So he said, okay, you know what? I want you to sit for your school cert again. So I sat for my school cert again. Unfortunately, the result I came out with the second time was worse than the first time. I had 1 pass, and in the remaining subjects I had F9. My father was livid with rage. And I remember how he was so upset that day that he said to me, just take a walk and go and look for what you want to do. If you want to sell pepper, come back and tell me you want to sell pepper. So I went out that day and I kept walking all over the streets. And then as I walked past the school. I didn't even know it was a school. I just saw a cluster of young girls on the balcony. And then when I looked up, I now saw that there was a signage saying that it was a secretarial school. Actually, typing and shorthand, because I went back home to tell my father I had gotten a school. My father was very disappointed because he was like, if you know what I'm ready to offer you, if only you could be serious. You're settling for a typing and shorthand school. I said, okay. However, I began to have a sense of seriousness in the typing and shorthand school. And I think the sense of seriousness came as a result of the fact that I was thriving. Well, the truth of the matter was that I was like a one-eyed person in the midst of blind people. The school was full of young ladies who were serving as house helps, and their madams sent them to that school for them to be able to while away time. I began to search for some international sectorial examinations, and I was passing. And so my father decided to remove me from that school and take me to a proper sectorial school. And I went to Grace Polytechnic, and there I finished my sectorial course and I started working. I started working as a secretary in 1985. I served as a secretary in Corona School Ikoyi for 9 years. And I enjoyed my stay in Corona School. I loved working with the children. I loved the environment. The fact that my children also eventually attended Corona School Ikoyi was a plus for me. I was going to turn 14. And I became suddenly very, very dissatisfied with where I was. I felt I hadn't accomplished anything. I began to be full of regrets, especially as I remembered the different opportunities that my parents gave me that I blew up. Having experienced abuse made me lose self-esteem. In fact, it made me feel there was really nothing special about me. I really felt like I was at the bottom of the rung. But when I began to work in Corona School, I began to see possibilities. I began to see men and women who, yes, had worked hard to get to where they were, as parents who could afford Corona School. Interacting with them showed me that really what made a difference in us is their mindset. I began to also learn a lot of things from them. I learned, beginning to communicate with them helped me to begin to rethink, gave me a different mindset. And that is why up till date, one of the things I believe that any human being needs to be able to go to another level, to go to a higher level, is the right environment. I stopped looking at myself as a result of what I had gone through in the past. I began to appreciate where I was. I began to be grateful. So I said to myself, yes, it's been great working here. I left anyhow because I began to hear stories of some people who actually didn't go to university, but they were able to learn skills. I remember coming across a man who said his mother sold Gary to send him to law school. And now he in turn now had become a lawyer and has children in Corona. And I'm like, really? And I said to myself, I'm here in Lagos. I can speak English. I can communicate. I can write. His mother could not write. She could not read. I said, what experience do I have? I said I was going to learn a trade. I left Corona school, making up my mind to open a daycare center. I felt that opening a daycare center was a low-hanging fruit that I could transition into. So I went to a Montessori school and I realized that it was going to take a whole lot. So I started by taking home lessons. I felt, okay, yes, with this little knowledge I have acquired, going for Montessori training, I can teach little children. One day, I entered one of their homes and the whole house was smelling of. I was perceiving the beautiful aroma of food. And I stepped into the kitchen and I saw a young man cooking in the kitchen. And I asked him what he was doing. He said he was a cook. I said, really? Where did you learn to cook like this? He said he had a boss who taught him. So I took the number of this boss and I kept it. So after a while, all these children I was teaching went on summer vacation. I had no child to teach. So I was home going broke. My husband and I had just 1,000 Naira. I remember vividly going to him to tell him that there was no food for the children to eat when they come back from school. And he told me that, well, I believe in you. I have this last 1,000 Naira with me. Go and see what you can make out of it. I brainstormed over what to cook. So that day, I decided to make moi moi. And it wasn't long after I finished cooking that my sister-in-law paid us a visit. So when she came into the room was full of the aroma of the moi moi, and I gave her a wrap. She tasted and she liked it. She requested if she could have more. She was ready to pay for it. So she gave me 1,000 Naira that day, and I made for her the next day. I remember making for her and at the same time removing some wraps to keep for myself, about 4 wraps. And she took home in a bag, in a nylon bag. And when she got home, my friend was waiting for her. Her friend tasted it and also requested. So the ones I had kept back from the ones I made for my sister-in-law, I can't remember, maybe like 2 wraps. I took to my neighbor downstairs. She also tasted it and liked it, and she asked where I got the moi moi from. I told her and she said, oh, please, by all means, can you make for me too? And I said, yes, just give me 1,000 Naira. And that was how I had extra 2,000 Naira to make for my sister-in-law's friend and my neighbor. I thought of the next place I could take it to where I could get a larger market. And the next place that came to my mind was my church. I was at the Redeemed Evangelical Mission then. I was a member of the church, and I also serving under this committee. And so I took the moment to the committee meeting a few days after. I was the secretary of the committee at that time. So as soon as I finished reading the minutes, I told them that, there's moi moi in my car for anyone who's interested. And people laughed. But then for the meeting, people came around my car to see what I had, and everybody bought. And the feedback again was very encouraging. I said to myself, I need to learn more. And I remembered the number this cook gave me. So I called the cook. I said, I make moi moi, but I would like to learn how to make continental dishes. And he said, oh yes, I can come and teach you, madam. So we agreed that each time he came, I would pay him. So I was paying him from the money I was making from moi moi, and I learned all these continental dishes. So after the training, I looked for a larger market to go to sell my moi moi. I took the moi moi to Corona school. It was a very humbling experience because I felt that it was also a large market. Church was the first large market. In church, I was selling one-on-one. But when I got to Corona, I had to humble myself because initially I was thinking people would laugh at me because quite a lot of parents who knew me were still there. But I encouraged myself by saying to myself that, well, I'm not here to beg. I'm here to offer a service. I have a product. I have value. So I'm sure that people will be ready to take my value and give me their money. And so that was how I went. And the dynamics and the strategy of selling at Corona School was a different ballgame. I had to stand at the gate and shout. I made a lot of drama, shouting and telling people I was selling money. I remember Every day I'll get there and I'll be shouting, moi for sale, moi for sale. Buy this moi, your life will not remain the same again. I just needed a catchphrase that will attract people, and it did work. But I got different reactions. Some people laughed, some people were excited, some people were curious. But bottom line was that I was selling. And I gained a lot of experience there. I gained a lot of self-confidence. The fact that people were buying, even though I was running in between cars. And I was able to use my skills, interpersonal relationships with parents, with teachers, and children. I didn't realize that all of that were assets that were going to work for me. They were capital. They were going to work for me in the future, and all of that worked for me. And I left Corona because something happened. One of the days I was standing in front of Corona, I met a woman who I engaged in a conversation for the first time, and who told me that she was looking for a caterer in her organization. She told me that in her organization she had 100 staff and she needed a caterer. Anyway, long story short, that was how I was called on board to service the company that took me off the street of Corona. I suddenly found myself in this big company in Ikoyi, and I was managing their canteen. It was a different ballgame altogether. I got staff and we started. I was with them for 3 years. On that job, I bought my first car for my business. And that was really very inspiring and encouraging. But before I got to that point of, serving the company for 3 years, doors had begun to open for me. I heard a voice say, Ayo, what do you want? And it became very important for me to determine what I needed for my every next step. And so I desired to really go to school. I said, this is good for business. Well, I began to listen to stories about people who had succeeded in business. And I found out that beyond being able to do business with your hands as a result of your skills, there's a need for business skills. There's a need for technical skills. There's a need for, skills on how to really diligently run your business. So I desired to go to a formal school where I could just receive training. So I saw an advert in the paper saying that an American company, Goldman Sachs, was coming to Nigeria to invest in women. The title of the program was 10,000 Women. So the initiative was set up to empower 10,000 underserved women in developing economies, to empower them with business skills, to be able to grow their businesses, and at the end of the day to be a channel of blessing even to their different communities. And I got on the program for 6 months. As a Lagos Business School, under their Enterprise for Development Center, the program is certificate for entrepreneurial management, and I saw women just like me. Yes, the difference was that our stories were not the same, but the bottom line was we're all struggling. So I was happy that I wasn't the only one struggling. So that also gave me courage. So I was on the program for 6 months and learned quite a whole lot about how to run a business. So that program really gave me a leg up in business, empowering me on how to run my business in such a way that there's sustainability, in such a way that I'll be able to position myself for even more opportunities. Finishing the program, there was a graduation, and Goldman Sachs sent a delegation from America to visit us. And I was nominated as one of the women to share her story. I shared my story and the delegation became interested in me and requested to come to my office. I told them I didn't have an office, that I was doing all of this from my kitchen. And that got them even more interested. And I was wondering, really? You're really interested in someone who just makes boy boy? I said, okay, let's do this. So they said they will come to my house. At that time, I was staying in Pambro, number 7 Shipwell Street, Pambro. I was worried initially about how they would power all the equipment. But suddenly, as soon as they set foot in my house, lights came, because normally at that time we don't have lights. And so it was like a light bulb moment for me, to know that there's really something about my story. When they finished the recording, they left, and a few months after, they sent a letter to me and asked if I would be able to come to the US if I got the visa. I couldn't believe it. How would I go to the US? I was invited to the US to speak at Goldman Sachs' annual general meeting. And so I addressed their annual general meeting. All I said was my story of how I had struggled and struggled and struggled, but this program has given me a platform to be able to grow my business. Not only to grow my business, to become a role model to other women. And when I finished that, I came back to Nigeria and got another letter, this time from the Clinton Global Initiative, to talk about my story. At that program, I continued to network, and doors kept opening. I left the program only for me to come back to Nigeria to receive another letter inviting me to come and be a speaker at the World Economic Summit in Turkey. This time around, I was invited by the Prime Minister of Turkey. So that was a big deal for the president of the country to invite you. And so I spoke about my business. I spoke about my journey, was just to continue to tell my story. I told my story, continued to network, and doors continued to open. And I kept building the business here. And so I got a business premises in Ikeja. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I just needed to also move the business out of the house. I was able to get more jobs and take up more jobs, because then I was not confined to the space of my house. I was able to hire more staff, and the business continued to grow. I remember at some point I decided to expand my business, and I went to my bank, approached my bank for a loan. My bank said to me, if I have 70%, they'll give me 30%. And I said, if I had 70%, I won't come to you in the first place. I was quite upset. A few weeks after, I got a call asking if I'd been able to access a loan to grow my business. And I said no. And then I told them all that had transpired with my bank. And then they said to me, wow, you know what? We're actually working with the White House this year on International Women's Day. And they told us to please give them 2 of our women who are on this program, or who have gone on this program. One who has been able to access a loan for her business, and another who has been working, but the banks have said no to in her bid to expand her business by asking for a loan. And that was how I qualified to go to the White House to talk about my business again. And of course, all those opportunities continue to help me to self-develop, continue to help me to grow, continue to help me to improve my standards, and put structures in my business. And so I enrolled for my MBA at the Manchester Business School. I was in the Manchester Business School for 1.5 years, almost 2 years. I had course to open 2 more branches outside this existing one. We opened a branch in Ikoyi, and we opened a branch in Abuja. And they were doing very well. But right now, we had to shut down the 2 branches. Now, the branch in Ikoyi was shut down for a very good reason. There was an opportunity to expand in Bagada. And so when we opened Abuja had its own challenge at some point. I had to make a decision. And I remember when I was trying to make that decision, I could have gone on with Abuja. But the reason I would have gone on was, what would people say? I knew that the figures were not making sense. I knew that things were not adding up. And the only reason I would have gone, because every other thing, the picture I was seeing in the books and everything said to me, Ayo, withdraw. And I had to choose between being sincere with the reality on the ground and just continue to do it because you don't want people to say you failed. And I found out that failure is actually not what we think failure is. I've decided to take failure as what people call failure, as continuous learnings.
My name is Olajude, the professor of Noleftovers. Here we do our normal Nigerian dishes and continentals, but our main product is more.
So we have the moinza, that is made after the fashion of pizza. We have the moin wheat that is made after the fashion of sandwiches. We have the moin wrap that is made after the fashion of shawarma. And then we have the moin bog that is made after the fashion of burgers. And the reason we did this is because we just noticed the young people now, they want to go high. You want things they can just eat and move. And so that's why we came up with all of this. Yeah, so we started with Moi Moi, but it's now a full-scale catering business. We offer all Nigerian meals, and then we do a lot of continental meals too. But if you come to the restaurant, you have the early morning local burger. And that's what we call the akara burger. When people are going to work, they are here wanting to buy akara. It looks like there's something with us and beans, so also in the afternoon, you can get amala, ewedu, and gbegiri.
Manage the kitchen, the customers' orders, the quality of things we use in the kitchen. And I must say I have a great team members. We cooperate with me. We work together to make sure we achieve what we really want.
But above all, it's the power of relationships. I can tell you that we would not have come this far if it had not been for the different relationships that have invested in me. And when I talk about investment, it's not in so much as money. It is opportunities that they create. It is rooms that they bring you into and say you enter this room.
I do packaging work, like envelopes, cartons, printing our office files on the other day. I started with the Noleftovers over 12 years. My name is a wonderful person. I pray for long life, good health, and also progress in business. Let the business go more and more, because if we expand more, the thing will rate me.
So the value your suppliers bring, the value, because they're also your customers, is amazing, because they open you to another totally different network. I remember our chicken supplier too. She's been with us for years. We've been patronizing her for years. The same with our meats, different people that have, and they've added value.
Is there anything you want to mention?
I began to see myself as a role model because I saw that people were being inspired by my story. I also was conscious of the fact that this growth that I was experiencing was not just for me. It was for me to be able to stretch my hands to help others. And so I started different initiatives. The first initiative I started was the Grace Ladies Business Fellowship. I started the Business Fellowship where I began to talk to women about business. But one thing that I had going for me, and I still have going for me to the glory of God, in all of this 15 years of running Noleftovers, is the grace to be able to balance, balance business with family. Are there challenges? Oh, certainly there are challenges. But you know what? I continue to see those challenges as steps to greater heights, and it's always been working in our favor. We continue to take jobs. We continue to innovate. Innovation has helped us greatly. So we launched Noleftovers in Lawrenceville, Atlanta, and it's an outdoor catering service for now. So we have our website. Sure, you can see it's growth, and so that's where we are for now. And we trust God that we'll have a physical address where we'll be able to service people who will be coming to eat, and then we keep going. For those who are aspiring to start businesses, I would encourage you, do not give up. I agree that the terrain in Nigeria is tough, but tough does not mean impossible. So you have to be very tenacious. You have to be determined. You have to be focused. Start with what you have. I found out that a lot of people get their fingers burnt because they want to start at a level other people are starting. Look at your resources and be very sincere with your resources and start with what your resources can accommodate. Business owners, we don't have it all. And so you have to network. You have to collaborate. You have to be very, very conscious of the different times and seasons also. You have to look at the terrain of your environment and the terrain of the economy you're in. And so for young people, the truth is there's so much pressure on the young people of today. I didn't go through the kind of pressure they're going through. There was no social media then. There was no social media to see what the whole world is doing, and then you're confused about where to start. Listen, you have to be careful. Not everything you see on social media is real. A lot of people put up stories. A lot of people borrow people's cars to say, this is my car. So don't let yourself be pressurized. Know where your breaking point is. If anything begins to oppress your mental health and you find yourself continuously agitated, just know that something is wrong. Anything that steals my peace, I drop it. No matter how good it appears, because anything that does not have peace cannot be sustained, okay? So young person, be ready to walk the walk. Be ready to get your hands dirty. There's no overnight success. And learn from those who have gone ahead of you. Because young people have access to a lot of information. Sometimes they forget the place of experience. Information is very good, but experience also plays a big role. And that's why it's good to have mentors. It's good to have coaches. Yes, it's good. We're not saying live their lives. We're not saying become their clone. We're not saying that. But there's so much you can learn. And what that does for you is that it saves you from a whole lot of mistakes.